We're back. It's News Talk, and we welcome Daniel Tagliarina here, a Utica College professor, and we are talking about everything that happened today in the impeachment proceedings, waiting for the House to vote. Thank you for being here to shed some light on what we've been watching all afternoon. And one of the first questions I wanted to ask is, if this goes to the Senate for a trial, if the Senate decides to convict, how does a conviction happen? Like, how much of a majority would you need?
So it has to be a 2/3 vote. So it's more than just a simple majority. So they would need to get 66 senators on board to vote to convict at that point.
And we're not expecting necessarily, I know a lot of networks, CNN, saying that if it reaches the Senate, it may not come to a conviction.
Correct.
Let's say it does. Can the president run for office in the 2020 election?
So some of that depends on what the Senate does. The simple answer is yes, because the punishment for impeachment is removal from office. Now, the Senate, if they vote to remove, can choose to bar further office as well. And at that point, Trump would be barred from running again.
So if they convict, if they decide, okay, this impeachment sticks, is that different than removal from office?
So the only punishment for impeachment is removal from office.
Okay.
And whether that is just the current office or all future offices would be up to the Senate.
And how does that work? Does it happen the next day?
Given that no president has ever actually been convicted in the Senate, we don't really know. Presumably it would have to be more or less immediately, but we don't really know.
And the reason why I wanted to ask you, if this president, if impeached, can he run for office? USA Today just out with a new poll, like since the impeachment proceedings have started, saying that this poll shows that he wins versus every single Democrat that has announced intentions to run. So that's why I wanted to get your feedback on if he is allowed to run for office, and if he is, if he's not, what happens then on the Republican side? Do they put a name forward? Is it too late at that point? Because in this case, I'm looking at it like, is the timing, playing a role here?
So if he is convicted and removed from office, the Republicans then would have still the presidency, as Mike Pence would be president. They could choose to just nominate Mike Pence when the time comes around. In that, if the trial's in January, as it looks like it will be now, and if that wraps up quickly and for whatever reason they convict, so again, lots of ifs we're building on here, it's into the normal primary season at that point, but it's still early enough that the Republicans could try to float candidates in some of the other states, but they would miss the first few that typically happen early in January.
And I talked to Luke Perry, one of your colleagues, a couple weeks ago, and we talked about how Congressman Anthony Brindisi's decision to impeach, to vote for impeachment, could play a role in next year's election. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it definitely would come up. He was sort of going back and forth before whether he was going to support before coming out in favor of the impeachment inquiry when that came up earlier. And depending on who the Republicans nominate, if it is Claudia Tenney again, she has portrayed herself as a big supporter of Trump and against the impeachment process. So if it's another Tenney and Brindisi run, I'd expect that to be one of the main issues.
Thank you so much for coming in. Daniel Tagliarina here from